one of the responsibilities of the alcoholic or the person who's in recovery is to just not take that first drink. That's one of the daily commitments. I can control not taking that first drink, but the powerlessness comes after I take that first drink. Brothers, welcome to today's episode of the Porn to Purpose podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matthew Sinkovitz. I'm here with my trusty co-host, my partner in crime, Yeadon Smith. Yeadon, welcome, brother. It's good to have you with us here today.
Matt, always good to be here. It felt a little weird, that introduction, because anytime somebody says trusty, I always think in my head, sidekick is the word that goes after that. My trusty sidekick. But I'll take trusty co-host.
I kind of got the Batman and Robin vibe whenever I made that introduction.
I'll be Robin. I don't mind having the green and yellow and red. Right?
Good, because I was leaning towards Batman myself.
There we go. I'll be Robin, you be Batman.
I like it. Well, good to have you with us here either way. And brothers, thank you for joining wherever you're finding yourself in the world. Today, I got an episode planned here for us that is near and dear to my heart, a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And that is the conversation around extracting some nuggets from my personal 12-step journey. And the title of today's episode is going to be something like, 3 things that I learned in 12-step recovery. And, I did not start in 12-step recovery. In fact, there was a lot of time, I would say, in my recovery work that I felt opposed to 12-step recovery work. I would say early in my personal development journey, I had a lot of judgment around 12-step stuff because of the whole, like, I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic kind of conversation. And that's actually going to lead me into my first point. But I found myself struggling so much in my journey, failing so much in my journey, at a loss for a path forward in my journey, that I felt, hey, maybe there's something here for me. And so I began digging into 12-step recovery work. I started with Sex Addicts Anonymous, spent time in Overeaters Anonymous around, food recovery, and ultimately Porn Addicts Anonymous. So I've been around 12-step recovery for several years. I've had sponsors. I've been a sponsor. I've worked the steps. I've been to lots and lots of meetings, learned a lot of the language. And today, and I would say I've definitely brought a lot of 12-step recovery ideas to the Porn to Purpose community.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the conversations we have, all the way down to doing the 3 circles, that's all 12-step recovery work. So a lot of who I am today as it relates to my recovery journey is informed by 12 steps. And what I would offer is this is not like a pro 12-step journey. I would say take what or pro 12-step episode, but I would say there's definitely value, there's definitely gold there. And as we always say, take what works and leave the rest.
Yeah.
In the spirit of 12-step recovery, that's what they say there too. Take what works, leave the rest, So that's what I invite you to here today, brothers. So without further ado, I'll kick off. Do you have anything before I kick off with some of these ideas?
No, man, the idea, I love that perspective, even inside of the 12-step community, where, like, hey, not everything is gonna, right. Don't take everything as the gospel truth, for lack of a better expression.
Right.
Take what serves you, take what's working. Don't worry about the rest.
Yep.
Focus on the stuff that's working, keep going, and maybe another piece will come along and serve you at some point.
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, that's what we're going to dig into a little bit here today, specifically, and that actually leads me to my first point. So maybe I'll go ahead and dig into it now. There was this idea. So my first point, one of my first big nuggets, or one of my big takeaways from 12-step recovery, was this idea of powerlessness. Powerlessness. and the idea of like being an addict or saying that I'm an addict, right? So like there's like this joke. You go into a room, you say, "Hi, my name's Matt." Everyone says, "Hi, Matt."
Hi,
You know,
Matt.
that's 12-step stuff, man. And it's really, it is cool in those 12-step rooms. Hi, I'm Matt. I'm a porn addict. Hey, I'm Matt. I'm a compulsive overeater, whatever it is. You don't have to say that, by the way, but some people choose to, and I'll dig into why that is a little bit, or at least what I've observed around it. Um, but it is it is cool. So hi, I'm Matt. I'm an addict, whatever it is. So that was like, I would say on the front end, that was one of the ideas or one of the concepts or one of the things that I saw in 12-step recovery that I did not like, that turned me off. I'm a words man. I'm all about affirmations. I'm all about words of empowerment. And from the outside looking in, and even when I got into 12-step stuff, I was really wrestling with a lot of the conversations, with a lot of the topics. And one of them is this idea of powerlessness, or this idea of claiming to be an addict. I said,
Mm,
I don't want to do
mm,
that. I want to claim that I'm free. I want to claim that I'm liberated. I want to claim that I'm powerful, not
yeah.
powerless. But as I began to spend time around the community and I began to work with the idea of take what works and leave the rest, and I just entered the rooms from a place of curiosity and openness because, hey, whether you like it or not, there's a lot of recovery in those rooms. There's a lot of people who have found sobriety. There's a lot of people who have
Yeah.
found spiritual
Absolutely.
peace in
Absolutely.
those rooms. I mean, they're the OGs for sure of recovery, of sobriety. So I'm like, there's something here. So maybe I get to suspend my judgments or what I think right from the beginning, and I get to just come here with a spirit of openness and learn. And what I began to find was, and actually this came from a partly from a conversation I have from a good friend of mine who's spent a lot of time in AA recovery, alcohol recovery, 12 step, and has found a beautiful stretch of sobriety. And I would say of true recovery. And I said, what does powerlessness mean to you?
Mm,
And when we got into this conversation, and he said, powerlessness means to me that if I don't actively engage in my recovery framework, if I don't actively participate in this, if I take my foot off the gas, if I'm too casual about this process, eventually I will drink again.
mm, yes.
And so I can look at that idea and look at what we do inside the Porn to Purpose community and say, yeah, we've got a daily framework, the daily core
Hmm.
four. We've got this kind of daily regimen, show up to calls, daily check-ins, right? Mental health, spiritual health, physical health. Because when I neglect those things, when I'm disconnected, when I'm isolated, eventually, and when I operate too burnt out, too worn down, too tired, too emotionally taxed, over time, it just enough of that together, enough of those days in a row, eventually acting out ensues. So
I hear
that's
you
one
talking.
concept.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, man. I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, go ahead.
like, I love that reframing of powerlessness because
Mhm.
I think of how we have conversations about the difference between sobriety and recovery.
Yeah.
And sobriety is the byproduct. And when
Yes.
it comes to that, we really kind of are powerless on the
Yes.
sobriety aspect.
That's it.
We are powerful on the active recovery. Just this morning,
Yeah.
and I checked this in our Voxer check-in with
Yep.
the
Yep.
community, where like I after I dropped my daughter off at school, I was like, I do not want to do my recovery habits. I do not want to go for a walk. I don't want to read. I don't want to journal. I don't want to sit and do nothing and
Yeah.
meditate.
Yeah.
I just wasn't feeling it. And I'm sitting there in my truck and I'm like, huh. And yeah, at this point, I would survive a day if I'm being
Hmm.
honest.
Yeah.
But I know if I take my foot off that gas pedal,
Yeah.
if I stop pedaling the bicycle, it's way too easy to tomorrow to be like, well, I'm tired today again.
Hmm.
I can
Yep.
take some time off. Next thing I know, 7 days have gone by and I have become a passive participant
Yeah.
in my recovery instead of active, and I lose my power.
Yep.
So I got my core four routine in, went for a walk, listened to my book, did my journal, did my meditation. I did not do a cold plunge this morning, but I am going to do that later on today. It's like, yeah,
Yep.
when it comes to the addiction, I recognize I do not have the power. I cannot
Yep.
just white knuckle it. The only
Yeah.
way I can be powerful is taking the active actions of recovery.
That's it. That's it. As my one of my earliest coaches in this work, I would say my earliest coach in this work, a guy named Craig Para, who runs a really really strong community. He says he says 80% of this work, maybe more, is about rigorous self-care. And
Mm,
to Yeadon's point, to my point, it's not that, we have to constantly be going, doing, which is kind of like some of what I see in 12-step recovery. It's like it's so much doing. But I think the point is, if I take my foot off the gas and I neglect my self-care,
yeah,
if I don't take
yeah.
my meds, if I neglect the things that keep me well and centered and balanced, then operating in the red for too long, it's just a matter of time. I think that's the point,
Gonna burn out.
Yeah, exactly. So that, and the second idea I want to offer around powerlessness is in AA and in any 12-step recovery community that you might find. In AA, the idea that I heard offered is one of the responsibilities of the alcoholic or the person who's in recovery is to just not take that first drink. That's
Hmm. Hmm.
one of the daily commitments. I can control not taking that first drink, or I at least have some say around that. But the powerlessness comes after I take that first drink.
Yeah.
So for me, thankfully, I don't have an issue with alcohol, right? But porn definitely, and food definitely. So for me, how I recognize and how I work with this concept is, if I start down the path of looking at the sites, of going down the pathway of, if I'm nibbling around the edges too much, if I start eating the food, for me, it's just like the doorway opens, the gateway floods, opens up, and the flood waters come rushing in.
Mm.
So
I
for
just
me,
experienced that just this morning.
yeah,
I was, seeing whose birthday it is on Facebook so I can do the birthday messages. And I was just
yeah,
scrolling, the reels that pop up.
yeah,
And, you know, I clicked on one, is like husband, wife, comedy duo. And then this woman, squatting 600 pounds or something crazy.
yeah,
And and I started to go to her profile, and I got to her profile, which was totally, there wasn't any porn on it, but I
yeah,
started to move my finger toward like what links does she have? And like, whoop, nope,
yeah, yeah,
nope.
yeah,
I've been down that road. This is my moment where I still have the power.
yeah,
If I start going down that rabbit hole, I'm going to start doom scrolling. I'm going to be in middle circle. I'm going to start
yeah,
looking for links that I can click on, and
yeah.
eventually I'm going to end up right back in the pit.
That's it. What I found with that is, what happens on a psychological level is, at some point we cross the, well, I've already done it,
Yeah.
conversation in our minds, and might as well, what's the point now? I might as well continue.
Yeah.
At some point we cross that line. And what I find is, for me, the reason it's important not to take the first drink or the first look in this case is, even if I'm able to turn around that day, if I go far enough down the rabbit hole, even if I'm able to turn around that day, it seems like oftentimes, inevitably, a couple days later or a couple weeks later, I end up acting out.
Mm,
So for me, it's so important not to take the first look, not to click the first time, not to take the first drink, not to take the first bite, because once that happens, there's like something that's set in motion, and there's a degree of powerlessness.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So those are a couple ways that I frame up powerlessness, and it makes sense to me. It's like, yeah, that actually, I find that to be true. And with that, I'll just finish this up and move on to the next point, is the conversation of being an addict. I hated the idea of joining those meetings and say, I'm an addict, right? I'm an alcoholic. I'm a porn addict. But what I began to recognize is, by stating that, it was like I was able to see it more clearly. It's like
Mm,
every time I got into that room and I said, I'm mad I'm a porn addict, or I'm mad I'm an alcoholic, it was like me saying to myself, Matt, you cannot play with this. You cannot play with porn. You cannot casually watch porn. Just like an alcoholic cannot casually drink, because
yeah.
I have a tendency or proclivity towards pornography. The alcoholic has a tendency towards alcoholic. And the one caveat I do want to offer is, and kind of one of my beefs, if you will, with the 12 step stuff is, I do want to hold space that maybe one day, like, complete healing and complete recovery is possible for me. Like, maybe one day it can just be completely behind me. But at least I know for now in my journey, if I if I want to play with the idea that I can have a couple drinks, or I can have a couple bites, or I can look a little bit, I think I'm setting myself up for failure. And it kind of, in a way, it helps to just claim, yeah, I'm an addict. In relationship to this thing, I've got this unhealthy dynamic,
Yeah.
and I can't have just a casual relationship with it the same way I can just have a couple beers, you know?
Right.
So
Right.
it kind of makes sense, you know? And so take it for what you will. Take what works and leave the rest. But I found that there was power in kind of clearly identifying that in relationship with this thing, it's not possible for me to have some kind of healthy casual dynamic because I'm an alcoholic or I'm a porn addict or whatever in relationship to this thing.
Yep.
I found that
I love
helpful.
it, man.
Okay, cool. So number two, and Yeadon already spoke to this. I was on a Sex Addicts Anonymous call, and there was this OG, his OG, and I forget his name now, and it's good anyway because it's anonymous. I'm not supposed to mention names anyway, but it was like something last initial, and uh, he was like this doctor guy who had been around 12 step for a lot of years, around Sex Addicts Anonymous for a lot of years, and he's got this crazy story. Um, but one of the ideas that he articulated, and it was one of those moments whenever he said it, I could see everybody else on the call grabbing their pens and writing it down. And Yeadon spoke to it here already. He said the distinction between sobriety and recovery is that sobriety is cumulative,
Mm,
meaning it's days on a tracker. It's what a lot of people strive for. It's what a lot of people put their focus and their emphasis on, getting streaks, getting days on the
yeah.
tracker.
Yeah.
And while there's something to be said for that, and while it does measure progress, it's kind of like looking at the tip of the iceberg and not looking at what's below
Mm,
the surface of the water.
yeah.
And so the distinction is sobriety is days on a counter, while recovery is cumulative. So sobriety is quantitative, recovery is cumulative, meaning I might act out, I might reset. But if I do reset my tracker, so long as I have been doing my work, I don't lose the recovery along the way. I don't learn the lessons. I don't learn all the gold that I've mined. I can stand back up, get back on the horse, and I haven't lost everything that I had gained in that moment, even though it feels like it in the
Yeah.
midst of a reset.
You know, that's something I bring up in our Porn to Purpose Facebook group in the community chat every now and then. The chat will get active and I'll chime in. I'm always asking men, what are you doing for your recovery? Like, what
Yep.
actions are you taking for recovery?
Yeah.
Trying to get the point across that recovery is an active process. It's not just throwing away all your devices and having a flip phone.
Yep.
That's not recovery.
Yep.
You're not actively engaged in the process.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, one more day without porn. Okay, one more day.
Yep.
Hoping that maybe if I get enough days, I'll get this
Yeah.
behind me.
Yeah.
But because the addiction is a coping mechanism, it's the pain
Yep.
pill that we take. If we don't heal the wound that's causing the pain, we're never going to be free. This is not a passive process. So I love that. Recovery is cumulative. Wait. No.
That's right.
Sobriety is cumulative.
Mhm.
Recovery is quantitative. Wait, no,
Yes.
I have it backwards. Sobriety is quantitative, days on the calendar. Recovery is cumulative. It just keeps stacking up,
Yep.
even if you
Yep.
reset. Yeah.
Yep. And it really helps for me, one, to help, I think, dampen the shame that comes with an acting out episode. And man, it's so frustrating. It's so discouraging. But you know what? It doesn't mean I'm a complete failure, especially if I'm willing to stand back up, dust myself off, go through the process, and continue on.
Yeah.
Right. And number two, it helps to really create emphasis on, okay, but that also means I need to be doing my daily work. I need to be
Yeah.
engaging actively in my daily recovery journey, as we've talked about already here on this episode.
Yeah.
Right. I need to be learning. I need to be growing. I need to be engaged in the process. So sobriety versus recovery, critical idea that I learned in the 12-step community. And it was a really important distinction for me. Okay.
Awesome, dude.
Number
Number
three.
3, bring us
Yes, sir.
home.
Number three, the power of community.
Mm,
And with the power of community coming the power of rigorous honesty. Right. I began getting into community around this work back in 2019, one of my first programs that I got involved in. And it was the first time for me that I began to experience the freedom, the liberation, the healing quality of getting into a safe room, into a safe space, and saying, I'm a porn addict. This is something I struggle with. Here's the things I've done. Here's the things I've looked at, right? Because so often, and in most cases, we deal with this all by ourselves in isolation, right? And that shame thrives and festers in the darkness.
yeah.
But when we bring it into the sunlight and we bring it into the healing space of compassionate, loving community, there's a beautiful healing effect. And we often say it, it's one of our taglines here, that shame dies when stories are told in safe places. So
Yep.
those recovery rooms begin to help me get visible, be seen, be supported, be loved, and start getting honest. We've talked about this in a recent episode, how the hiding is part of what makes us sick,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we can bring it, it's just like it's probably the same like mechanism behind like confession, right? When I go and I confess, right, even though we don't really use that language, right? But when I go and I'm willing to be seen and visible and forgiven in a way, right, which is why the compassionate, non-judgmental community part is so important. There's healing, there's grace, and 12-step recovery. I experienced it in such a beautiful way because in 12-step recovery, especially in Sex Addicts Anonymous or these like sex oriented rooms, man, uh, the people that society deems as the worst of the worst, they're there and they're sharing their darkness. And you know what? They're loved and they're supported and they're given compassion and they're welcomed in and they're told you deserve a safe place to heal and to grow just like everybody else does. There's this
Yes.
taboo around sexuality and it's hard to deal with like sexually charged topics or conversations or addictions or afflictions in public. It's like alcohol, as devastating as it is, it's more like socially acceptable. Drug
Yeah.
addiction too, food addiction too. But sex, man, there's a special stigma attached to sex.
Oh man, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? The guy who deals with the worst of the worst, as society deems it, he needs a place to be loved and to heal and to grow in recovery and to recover too. Because what's he supposed to do? To not have that and for it to continue?
Mm-hmm.
No, he needs a place to heal so he can outgrow and change and evolve.
Yeah.
So community helped me begin to experience what compassionate, non-judgmental spaces felt like and really begin to experience grace. And that began to give me the permission to get honest, which began to really help to support my healing journey.
I love that so much. Being able to say what's going, shame dies when stories are told in safe spaces.
Yeah,
Telling your story, and there's just compassion, love, support instead of fear, guilt, shame.
yeah, yeah. My one of my primary teachers in my life, he we were having a talk one time on the conversation of compassion. He said the worst of the worst of the worst, the people that society deems as the worst of the worst of the worst, they too need and they too deserve a place to be seen, supported, loved, and forgiven. Everybody. And I think that's part of our roles as practitioners and those that support men in this
Yeah.
work, Yeadon, and as a community, to help those that feel ostracized from community to have a safe place to heal and do the work. So that's it. That's number 3, community and honesty that comes from the safe space of community.
I love this, man. So let me recap. We got distilling it all down, understanding where the powerlessness starts so that we can really take ownership of the powerfulness that we do have access to. Not taking on the identity of an addict fully, but understanding at this point, I don't have control. Someone else is driving the ship. The powerlessness, addiction versus being powerful in recovery, which goes right into the second point of sobriety versus recovery. If all we're trying to do is create a streak of days sober, that's not recovery. That's the powerlessness. We're just waiting for the other shoe to drop instead of taking the active daily role in the actions that support the healing for the recovery. Which leads us to point number 3, being able to be visible and seen while we're taking those action steps, because nobody's perfect when they start. When we learn how to walk, we fall down. When we learn how to tie our shoes, we don't know what we're doing. When we learn how to drive a manual transmission, it's like, it's like that. When we're learning something new, we never get it right the first time. And having a community where we can share that without fear of judgment, without fear of shame, without fear of being ostracized and isolated, it allows us to really take the forward motion in the recovery journey to heal, to move past, to really focus on being powerful instead of just being stuck in the powerlessness. I love that, man. So, man, if you're out there listening, we hope this message serves. We hope this supports you in your active recovery journey. Taking the wheel and taking ownership of what action steps you can take. Focus on the recovery and the sobriety will follow. Find a community that is safe. If you're looking for one, we got one. We got the Liberation Boot Camp. We got the 6-month program where we walk with men through this process to actively participate in their recovery and really live into the powerfulness. If you want to know more about what we do, you can check us out at porntopurpose.com. If there's a group that you're connected with now, dive in more. Get the support that you need. Get the community so that you can become an active role, to take the active role in your own life.
Amen.
And that note, brothers, we love you. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Brothers, thanks so much for being here. Peace.
Peace and power.
We are
noble men.
Thanks, Yeadon.